of the consistency of paint. How thick is my paint going to be? Not thick. How not thick? Skim milk or 2% for your sprayer? Yes, very good. Do dairy products work, y'all, in terms of like talking to you about viscosity? Is that like something that you can all relate to? Kind of, you don't do milk? Okay, all right. Yeah, I can't think of any other equivalency, right, for talking about viscosity. But if you think of anything, let me know, right? Like, you know, because soup doesn't, like, that's not going to do it. Yeah. See how fast that goes on and how fast that can happen, right? You all notice that I started spraying off the surface first and then moved on the surface, right? So we'll give it like a little bit more push right at the top and call it good. Okay, can you turn that fan on for me, please? All right, so now we need to let this dry, right? This is when you would go and mix your next set of colors, of course, right? But, you know, I'm already mixed, so I'm going to start, and the thing that I can do while this dries is I can start working into my background down here, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start putting some color into my background. Now, you're going to see a lot. I'm going to try to use as many different tools as I can. The fact of the matter is, you might like look at your piece and go, I can really honestly do this whole thing with like a roller, or I could do this whole thing with a sponge. And, you know, you probably would be right. But what I'm going to ask you to do is to embrace the spirit of the project and play with different tools, okay? Go, yeah, of course I could use this one tool to do the whole thing, but I'm going to, like, mess around and, like, you know, explore, because that's what we're here to do, is explore. Also, as you're exploring, in other words, doing this project, do remember that it's an exploration, all right? You don't need to, your careers do not hinge on how well you paint your no-brush project, right? Just enjoy the exploration of, like, figuring out if, you know, it's like, I trust Susan and Rebecca when they say that you can do this whole project with just, you know, all with no brush tools. So I'm going to find out if I can truly do this whole project with just no brush tools. No black. And none of these colors were mixed with using black or Payne's gray or Van Dyke brown. I know, because I mixed them myself. Hmm?
Here's your picture of.
Want to take a picture of it?
Yeah. Can I take a picture?
Hurry up, you guys. I'm making this stuff up as I go right now. So you can see that, like, I'm using this time, whoops, that's a tree. I'm using this time right now to, like, get some of my background stuff laid in while I'm just waiting for, like, the sky to dry, but, you know, it's trying to use my time effectively. Yep.
Are you essentially trying to put this technique on the canvas itself?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely am. All right. Almost dry enough. That's the wonder of paint. Yes, you can paint over it. Yes, absolutely. It's one of the things that's so great about our job. In fact, this is not fresh muslin that's underneath here. That's actually a Corinthian column. Okay. Now we'll screw around a little bit with clouds. So pre-valve sprayers. So what these do is you have what's called the power unit, right? And it has basically aerosol atomizer in the barrel of the power unit. And it sucks the paint up that you yourself mix from the jar. See this little notch right here? You want that little notch facing forward because it's opposite of this tiny little hole right there, and that's the hole that sucks in air that allows the paint to come up through the tube, right? So the air has to be replaced in this jar, otherwise a vacuum forms. And then when a vacuum forms, nothing happens. And you're like, pre-valve, right? You say a lot of bad words. So, pre-valves are gnarly little suckers, right? When they work, they are so great. They are just awesome. When they don't work, you just want to like throw them against a wall. All right, so here's what I suggest. I suggest everybody go home and create a pre-valve shrine. All right? And like at least once a week, like offer it like a shot of whiskey and a cigar, right? To try and stay on its, the spirit of the pre-valve's good side, okay? And no, seriously. So there are some things that you can do to make pre-valves work better for you. One of the things is when you first start working with, and you are going to get your own pre-valves, right? I made that clear at the beginning of class. You can order them from Amazon or you can buy them at Lowe's or Home Depot, okay? They're kind of like tricky to find at Home Depot, but they're usually near the spray paint. So when you first pull the power unit out and start working with it, fill the jar full of just clear water, or put clear water in the jar, right? I frequently use hot water when I do this because one of the things that happens with the accelerant in pre-valves is like the media comes out so quickly, right, that it actually like gets super, super cold. The temperature drops inside the power unit super, super fast, and it actually causes it to freeze. And sometimes it will, the media will freeze up inside the tube. So you're like, it's blocked, and it might not actually be blocked with paint. It might just be blocked because it's frozen. So I usually use hot water to do this, and I usually then like prime it by running the power unit for about 30 seconds, making sure that it's running fine just with clear water. Like I let it work out all its sputtering and everything before I like start working with it. If it still won't work, what you can do is you can take the tube off the pre-valve and stick it under running water and see if the water is going through the tube and coming out the spray nozzle. You can also take the spray nozzle off, and if you're like, maybe it's the spray nozzle that's stuck, and just see if clear water is running through the tube. So just hold it under the faucet. Then you can go, okay, well, I think the nozzle might be. And we usually try to keep, like, pull the nozzles off before we throw the power units away if they're running clear, and, like, put some spare spray nozzles over there, okay? When you first take the power unit out of the box, the tube is going to be somewhere in the box, okay? So don't throw the box away until you've made sure that you've retrieved the media tube, right, and stuck it on the bottom, okay? Now, I live dangerously all the time and have been for years, and I just keep an eye on my media, and like if I'm like, that media looks really gnarly, like I will go ahead and strain it into another container, but I'm like, yeah, no, like, there's no lumps or bumps in this stuff, and I pour it straight into my pre-valve. Like I said, I am living dangerously. So, you might want to consider straining all of the media. We have little funnels over there that go into your pre-valve, okay? So as far as how thick the media can be, sorry, I still don't have anything better than milk. We haven't thought of anything better than milk. Whole milk, skim milk, whole milk, half and half is pushing it, okay? What's that? No, half, the eggnog's thicker than half and half. These are weird clouds. Also, the other thing that pre-vals really, really hate is they hate it, especially when you first start working with it, if you like just go and press straight down on the top of the spray nozzle. They're just like, I don't like being like treated in such a such an aggressive way. So just lightly, as you first start working with it, just lightly push down on the spray nozzle, okay? Because if you just like go every time, it's probably going to go, yeah, no, I'm definitely not about it. Now, I know this looks white, but this is actually a relatively light color, pastel kind of color of gray-blue, as you can see, okay? And here's the thing. Yes, there's a very, very strong chance here that you are going to lose your cartoon. I'm going to just start making stuff up by reading the rendering, but that's one of the reasons that we tell you that you should pounce your pieces. So that if you're like, I lost my cartoon and I just, like, I don't feel comfortable working it without knowing where my cartoon is, then you can go ahead and recover your cartoon. There's such weird cloud shapes. Yes. But by next Thursday, you are going to have your piece transferred to your flat. You're going to have your cartoon transferred to your flat, and you are going to have what is essentially your ground colors in. And we went over ground color. Did we go over ground colors? I don't think we did. Did we? Okay. Yeah. So, and if you're still confused, but yeah, we did. If you're still confused about ground colors, that PowerPoint presentation is in your Canvas page. Yeah, it's fine. Absolutely fine. So how are you doing coming up with your processes? That is fantastic. Way to go. So here's one of the reasons that pre-vals sometimes are grumpy, like you'll go over in production to use the shop pre-vals, and first of all, they're all dirty and gross. You guys, like, it's a spray tool, so wash them off immediately after using them, okay? Because if you just let it sit there and get all dry, yeah, the next time you pick it up, it's going to be like grumpy. Okay. So now we're going to, can you turn the fan back on for me, please? Thank you. So now we're going to go ahead and start laying in some of our tree stuff, right? So whenever you approach a tree, I want you to remember that you have a front side of a tree, essentially, like it's a three-dimensional form. So many times people go to paint trees, and what's the first thing they paint?
The trunk.
But the trunk is actually in front of at least half of the foliage that you see. Ah, right? So what we do frequently is we actually start by painting essentially what we feel like is the back side of the tree or the shadow side of the leaves first, and then paint trunk and branches up through them, right? And technically, if you were really paying attention to doing like a full-on tree, like you might actually do that process a couple of times, like do some shadow leaves, do some branches, do some more shadow leaves, maybe a few that are catching a highlight, do some branches, and so on and so forth, and work your way up through the mass of the tree. We usually kind of abbreviate it to like background foliage, trunk, foreground foliage, right? So in order to do this back of the tree, I'm going to mess around with this guy. Yep. It is. He's fun. He is fun. Yeah, because I'm painting it upside down right now. So I always hold the reference in the same relationship that I'm looking at it from. And I'm actually sort of abbreviating this because remember, this is 6 inches short than what I've got here. And we didn't I think Sophie cartooned it at just the 6 feet, but I'm kind of, now that my lines are completely gone, I'm just sort of squishing it and doing a fair amount of the composition just squished into 6 feet. As long as I've lost my lines, right? So one of the biggest problems with trees is people tend not to keep them lacy. They tend to fill them in, right? And make them really massy. You can always add more paint to a thing, right? You can always make something a little bit more but you can't get that sense of laciness back. So when you start laying in, if you've got foliage, when you start laying your foliage in, just remember not to make things solid. You can always go, no, that spot needs to be solid, and do that later as you're thinking about it and adjusting. But initially, try to leave some dappliness, some laciness in your tree. Okay. All right. What other tools can we use to make tree things happen? How about a paint stamp? So paint stamps you can use different ways. You can use a paint stamp and just go stamp, to stamp, to stamp, to stamp, right? Okay? But you can also use it as a texture tool. So for this tree here that's on the side, that sort of has this nice horizontality to it, I'm going to use my paint stamp to get some of that horizontalness going. Okay, and then I've got another tree over here, but he is kind of dead. So I'm going to pull this tray back out. Looks like the pine beetle got to this tree. Okay. Alrighty then. Background foliage. I've got a little bit more up there to do. All right, this guy is my own weird little invention. I call him the sea urchins. So for really close-up needles, this guy works great because you can do close-up needles by just going, try not to mess the paper up too much, by just going like that. Okay? So all of the Christmas wreaths that I have had to paint, all of the snow forests, like this guy has worked really, really well for that. Also just works good as a texture tool too for like tighter in detail. So we have another tree in the back that is like sort of kind of half dead. Okay. Ah. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and do some of the trunk work, do a little bit of kind of vertical work in the background. We'll refresh these colors a little bit. So whenever you mix your palette, remember that you are mixing a palette that is going to work for you. And sometimes it is about, like, I know that I'm just going to be mixing this color with that color, right? I don't really need to put, you know, like, there's you know, a step between these two, but between these two colors, I'll have it covered, right? So whenever you're mixing a palette, particularly for organic content, you want a palette that is going to, like, kind of morph with you through the composition. You don't have to go, okay, I have to have this shade of blue and this shade of blue and this shade of blue. You're like intermixing, right? You can definitely intermix colors as you go. Don't go too crazy with this. Like, I don't want to see anybody out there going, I have red, yellow, and blue on my palette. I'm ready to go. Right? Like, you know, mix your palette that is appropriate for your project. All right. So I have this one tree in here. It's sort of a dead tree. And then this guy over here tends to have a little bit of color in him. So we'll start with him. So like I said before, I have done entire drops just with a roller, and it went fast. Okay. So I guess you're just going to go in there. All right. So now, let me see. I've got a few more background trees or trunks I want to put in. Ooh. Oh, I guess the foliage is going out here now. And I used to paint on a frame. Sometimes, no matter how careful you were, you'd have a drip that would just like, on a good paint frame, the top of the frame is tilted out from the bottom of the frame so that hopefully paint falls away. But sometimes it still like hits really, really well. And you'll end up with this drip that goes like, woo, like all the way down, right? And at this one company, we were painting with aniline dye, so there were no like take backs. And you were talking about like, what if I do it wrong? And I was like, you can paint it over. Not so easy to do with aniline dye. So sometimes we just go, okay, well, I guess I'm adding a tree. Because got this big old hoary drip that just like went sploosh all the way down my drop. Huh? Yeah. Feather dusters are, like they are little terrorists, man. Like they're so useful, but yeah, like you've really got to watch them. Right? Okay, so I have this area right here, but that is like a deep, deep shadow area. So All right. So remember, when you use a sponge, every sponge has its own particular, like, texture, okay? So, you know, like, which sponge you use, like, can, you know, depend on what kind of texture you're trying to accomplish. Before you use a sponge, it's a good idea just to get it damp so that it takes the paint into itself a little bit more easily, but you don't have to dip the whole sponge in the water, you know, in the paint. You can just like use the end or the edge of the sponge that you want to use. All right. You can see that having a water bucket near you at all times is really, really helpful. Okay, good. What's that?
All coming together now.
I know, isn't it fun? So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that all of my areas of my background are kind of copacetic so that I am ready to move into my foreground. Ooh, that's fun. All right. Let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead now and put in the main tree. I'm going off script a little bit here, just because I'm having a good time, so. Right? I know, it's just like it's crazy, right? But I think one of the hardest things in this program is that we work you through this project, right? And, you know, like I've watched students like slow down. Like I'll do this demo really fast, and then I've watched them like slow down and like get just like really into like what they're doing, and all of a sudden like they're trying to be so particular and so careful. And we want you to be accurate, right? But we want your work to be efficacious. We want it to be, one of my favorite words is alacritous, which means good and fast. And, you know, so we're trying to teach you these things so that you can, like, be discerning about what you spend your time on, right? And what kind of effect you're getting, you know, how much mileage you're getting for your money, so to speak, with a given technique. So try to keep that, like, in your head as you're working through your curriculum. Try to keep it, like, in your head that you can, like, go, oh, I just need to punch a little bit of value back there, right? Instead of like, ah! You know, you just, so keep trying to, bring the lessons forward. All right, so now we are going to go ahead and come forward with the foliage. No, we're not, actually. I take that back. So I'm going to do a little bit of banded roller work on that main tree trunk, just to give it like a little bit of texture, because it in particular is really showing its texture. So I'll use this tool to do that. One of the great unsung heroes of doing texture work. Just wrap some rubber bands around a damn roller, right? And get her done. I can't hear. Oh, hell yes. Yeah. So did I tell you all my East German story? So I went to when I went to Germany on a trip just after Checkpoint Charlie had been hauled away. We were in a hotel room that was really, really close to the East German line of the city, what had been the demarcation line. And this mural was not in East Germany, but it was like right on a wall that was like just on the other side of the demarcation line. So, it was like so many of the mural work back then. It was about freedom, and it was a beautiful, beautiful mural of a forest scene. And I was like, it looked freaking photorealistic. And you all have to remember, this was before big format printing was a thing. So I knew it had to be painted, right? Because they were, in that era, they were still painting billboards, like on the side of the road. You didn't see printed billboards. They were all hand painted, right? So that didn't change. That changed in the late 1980s. So I I have to see how that mural is done, because that thing is just stunning, right? So I went, the next day I was like, we're going in that direction for coffee, because I need to see this mural. I need to see what the hell is, how the hell they did that. The entire mural had been painted entirely with rollers. And that was when I first really, really understood how useful a roller could be in terms of getting stuff done. And so I definitely started experimenting with that on my own, and like trying to figure out get them, how I could get more mileage out of a roller. And it just it just upped my game. So yeah, rollers are amazing. All right, now we will go ahead and see if this will do the thing. Oh yeah. Hardly seems possible, right? That just like wrapping some rubber bands around a roller can get you such satisfying results in terms of texture. All right, now we will go ahead and do some of the front foliage, and then we'll do the rocks. We've got some darks we need to punch back in, but we are getting very, very close. I haven't taken this guy out for a spin yet. Oh, it's got a big fat handle. Not exactly extension worthy. Yeah. Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
When you lose a lot, sometimes you are really aggressive with the thing, other times you're very careful.
Yep.
Is there some delineation or is it serious?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, but yeah, it is. It's like sometimes you're just like, eat, and then sometimes you're like, la, 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 la. Okay, so I've got some pebbly rocks down here at the bottom that are pretty profound, so I'm literally just going to use a dauber to get some of this pebbly stuff happening down here. Yep. So it's got a little bit, so when I roll it, it's got a little bit of a, like, kind of, interesting shape going. But basically it's just literally is like daubs of paint or daubs of foliage down here, or foliage rocks down here. So now here's what you might be tempted to do. You might be tempted to like go, oh, I can literally paint with a dauber like it's a brush. Yes, you can. Should you on this project? No. Like try to go with the spirit of the project and try to like use your tools as texture tools and work your way up through the composition without like kind of relying on essentially like, purposefully applied brushwork, brushworky kind of strokes, okay? Like try to let the tools do their job. So we're going to use this tool now to like lay in some of my rock colors. And like almost all of these tools, like I said, I could just rely on one tool to do the whole thing, right? But we're trying to like explore. So I'm exploring. So you can see, like, one of the, superpowers of texture tools is you could be at this all day trying to go, trying to put that brush stroke in the perfect place to, like, create a sense of texture and sort of a sense of happenstance, right? Or the texture tool can do that for you. So, it's like by using this texture tool and letting the texture tool sort of like create that sense of just like happy happenstance or accident for me. It's just like, thank you, texture tool. Like, I never would have thought to place that brush stroke there, but there you have it, right? So let the texture tool, like, you know, that's one of the things that's so damn useful about texture tools. They are just so awesome for that. All right, so I think I am just about ready to call this bad boy done. I am just going to throw in a few little darks in a couple of places. So one thing that you'll find when you start really working on organic subject matter, be very careful about like going uphill with your brush strokes or your texture tools or anything else. So when you have like on the ground, like, you know, you can see like a movement going uphill. Think about going uphill, but in horizontal lines, so that it just, you don't break that sense of this is a plane that is perpendicular, essentially, to your vertical view. Because if you just try to have a brush stroke or a texture stroke just go straight uphill because something is going up into the distance, it just tends to look kinky. So if you've got to go uphill, like go uphill in horizontal strokes, okay? All right, what do you think? Should we, like, I could noodle with it for a little while longer, but I think you all get the idea, yes? Yes. Okay? Cool. How long did it take? How long did we go?
It was like an hour and 30 minutes. Yeah, what is it? 12:02 right now.
Good. We did good.
That's crazy.
Well, and part of the reason for doing this is to help demonstrate to you the power of, like, literally just the power of scenic artistry, how fast scenic artistry can work for you.